Are you bullying your kids without realizing it? It's a question worth asking, says psychologist Dr. Jaqueline Becker, author of More Time Ins, Not More Time Outs, Parent Without Bullying. And the answer, she says, is probably yes.
And I think parents can tell when they're off, if they're angry, if they're talking in a way that's harsh. You're probably doing the bullying.
She says be careful about your assessment, though, because there's a distinct difference between tough love and badgering them about your rules and worldview.
The second one is bullying. The first is just discipline.
Dr. Becker elaborates.
Giving discipline can be just fine as long as you do it right. That's your job as a parent, is to discipline. And I also don't particularly have a problem with timeouts. I think it's a very useful tool for teaching discipline and setting limits. The problem is it's so misused, and that parents use it as more like a punishment tool than as a teaching mechanism.
And she adds, they also use it as their own personal tap-out from parenting itself.
When I was supervising teachers, very often I would say, because they'd have a kid in timeout a lot, and so I'd pursue it, and I'd say, what's the reason for his timeout today? And invariably the teacher would say, I have had it up to here, couldn't take it anymore, he's really just awful, couldn't take it. Then when I started to see children in my practice and interviewed the parents, I often asked the same question. Why did you send her for a timeout this time exactly? And invariably the answer was, I had it up to here with her, she's awful, couldn't take it, it was terrible, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I started to think about that. And I said, well, more often than not, what I'm hearing is that timeout is really for the parent, not the child, or the teacher, not the child.
Instead of the reflexive timeout, Dr. Becker insists that parents use it as a last resort.
What I discovered is that truly about 5 or 6 steps prior to the timeout is when you should have jumped right in and taken care of something.
And that'll require better parental awareness of your child's real behavior.
What happens is parents, they miss the little cues. They miss when the child goes just a little off. And it's understandable in a lot of instances. Parents are busy. They're thinking about other things. They blink past it because they think it's no big deal. But it adds up, and that's when you get to a timeout that's more for the parent than the child.
Think of it this way.
That's what time in is about, really paying attention and really being present.
You'll also need to pay attention to your own behavior.
If you do it every so often, you lose your cool and you snap or you're mean, I don't think that's an issue. It's not really a big problem. Everybody does that from time to time. It's only when it becomes a pattern that it's an issue. That's when parents start to have to pay attention to themselves and say, what am I doing?
And Dr. Becker says you shouldn't be afraid to recognize when you've exhibited bully behavior.
I think you have to acknowledge that you sometimes do. And then when you do, you have to then ask yourself, what are my triggers? What is it about what this child did or didn't do, maybe as a pattern, that triggers something in me? Now, kids say, you triggered me. Well, everybody gets triggered. So what you want to do is take responsibility for what gets triggered in you and then gain some control over your behavior.
How do you get that control? Ask yourself these simple questions.
Is this really how I want to behave? Is this how I want my child to see me? What does it feel like to not be in control? And then you have to ask yourself why. I don't have a problem asking the question. Mm-hmm. It's answering it that I want us all to do more intensely. Why did I do that? It's that simple. But the answer is not, because you're going to have to look deeper in yourself to take responsibility for those behaviors.
Becker says parents' bully behavior lurks beneath our awareness, a phenomenon she's defined as bi-conscious, or the power that the unconscious plays in directing parents to bully or not.
We're not just conscious beings. And this unconscious part of us intrudes all the time.
Once you've recognized your own triggers, you then need to establish the proper response because, after all, parenting must still happen.
It's what I call the Goldilocks approach. Too soft, too hard, neither are right. You have to find that wonderful middle point.
And be aware, that middle point is never static.
It's going to be different for each child. For some, you need a stronger hand. Some you need a softer hand. And the truth is, it's different with every instance. That's why you need to be paying attention.
Becker continues.
Let's say the child's having a tantrum. There's different kinds of tantrums. Is it a tantrum because he wants to manipulate you, or is it a tantrum when he's really out of control and you better hug him tight? There's different approaches for each one.
But
make no mistake, discipline is what love looks like. It's your job.
Because with the right discipline,
that's the way you teach children to control themselves, and that's how they'll become more safe in the world.
Dr. Becker says one of the most revealing phases when parents discover their own selves is when their child is a teenager.
It's a wonderful challenge because you actually grow by doing it. You really have to then take responsibility and become more than you thought you were, and what joy that is. You know, when you make a mistake and you act up and you're mean or whatever you do, if you can just differentiate and you say to your child, look, well, I don't like what you did. That wasn't good. Of course, I love you, but I am sorry I told it to you that way. They love that. And that builds an authentic bond.
Andrew Sgroi, WDEL, Delaware's News Radio.